She ruined our marriage with one sentence. But what happened afterward changed us both forever. Ethan looked across the restaurant table at Lillian, but the woman he'd once loved was no longer in front of him. There was no doubt in her eyes, only expectation as if he should accept it, come to terms with it. I want an open marriage. In that moment, time stood still. He could have argued, screamed, begged, but instead he did something he didn't expect of himself. The restaurant hummed with the soft murmur of conversations, the clinking of glasses, the distant melody of a jazz piano. Candles flickered atop white linen-covered tables, casting golden reflections on the polished silverware. A bottle of red wine stood between them, half empty, a silent witness to 5 years of marriage. Ethan had planned everything. Reservations at Lillian's favorite restaurant, a delicate gold bracelet wrapped in an elegant navy blue box, the kind she loved. Tonight was supposed to be about them, about celebrating the life they had built together. But something was off. Lillian stirred her wine absent-mindedly, her fingers tracing the rim of the glass. She hadn't laughed at his jokes like she usually did, had barely touched her food. And when he reached across the table to hold her hand, she hesitated before letting him. A knot tightened in his stomach.
"Lil, you okay?"
He said softly, trying to meet her gaze. She looked up then, exhaling sharply as if she'd been holding her breath.
"There's something I need to talk to you about."
Her voice was steady, but her eyes darted away. Ethan straightened in his chair, a creeping sense of unease prickling the back of his neck.
"Okay, what is it?"
he said carefully. Lillian set her glass down, folded her hands together. A deep breath.
"I've been thinking a lot about our marriage, about us, and I want to try something different."
His heart thumped. The way she said it, slow, deliberate, made the hair on his arms rise.
"What do you mean? You want to take up skydiving or something?"
She didn't laugh.
"I want an open marriage."
The words landed like a blow, knocking the air from his lungs. For a moment, Ethan was certain he had misheard her. His mind scrambled to piece together a logical explanation. Maybe she was joking. Maybe this was some kind of bizarre test. But the way she looked at him, expectant, nervous, told him it was neither.
"You want a what?"
"An open marriage."
Silence stretched between them. Ethan could hear the faint chatter from the table behind him, the clatter of a waiter dropping a spoon, the low hum of the restaurant's air conditioning.
"Lillian, are you serious?"
he said slowly, his mouth dry. Her fingers tightened around her napkin.
"I love you, Ethan. That hasn't changed. But I feel like I need more. Like I'm missing something."
"Missing something? We have a good marriage. A great marriage."
His pulse pounded in his ears.
"I know, and that's why I want to be honest with you about this. I don't want secrets between us.
She hesitated, searching for the right words.
I feel like there's a part of me I haven't explored. And if I don't do this now, I might start resenting what we have."
Ethan laughed, a bitter, disbelieving sound.
"You're asking for permission to sleep with other men, and you think that'll make our marriage stronger?"
Her lips pressed into a thin line.
"It's not just about sex, Ethan."
"Oh, really? Then what exactly is it about?"
She exhaled sharply, frustration creeping into her features.
"It's about connection. Freedom. About not feeling like I have to suppress parts of myself to fit into some perfect wife mold."
Ethan gripped the edge of the table, knuckles white.
"You know what I hear? I hear, Ethan, I love you, but not enough to be faithful. Ethan, you're good, but not good enough. Ethan, you're safe, but I want more.
That's not fair.
Isn't it?
He forced himself to breathe, to think, to process. His hands trembled, adrenaline pumping through his veins. He had imagined many possibilities for how this evening might go, but never this.
Lillian, are you already seeing someone?
She flinched, and that tiny hesitation, that barely perceptible pause, sent his stomach plummeting. Ethan stared at her, a sick realization settling over him.
Jesus Christ, you already have someone, don't you?
No.
Don't lie to me.
Her mouth opened, but no words came out. The waiter appeared then, oblivious to the war raging at their table.
Would you like dessert?
Ethan let out a breathless chuckle, as if his whole world hadn't just cracked in half. Lillian glanced at him, eyes pleading, but he didn't meet her gaze.
No, just the check,
He said, pushing back his chair. The city blurred past in streaks of neon and shadow, headlights carving through the darkened streets as Ethan drove with no destination in mind. His hands gripped the steering wheel tighter than necessary, knuckles taut, jaw clenched. The words still echoed in his head, looping like a broken record. I want an open marriage. He slammed his foot down on the gas pedal, the engine growling in response. The familiar streets of their neighborhood melted away as he merged onto the highway. The rhythmic thud of the asphalt beneath his tires the only constant in a night that had unraveled into chaos. His phone buzzed on the passenger seat. He didn't have to look to know it was Lillian. The first few messages had come minutes after he left the restaurant. Ethan, please come home. Then, we need to talk. And later, just tell me you're okay. He wasn't. Ethan reached for the device, fingers hovering over the screen before he let it drop back onto the seat. He couldn't deal with her words right now. Couldn't handle whatever excuse or justification she had rehearsed in her head before dropping that bombshell. His eyes burned, not from exhaustion, but from the sheer weight of it all. 5 years of marriage. 5 years of building a life together, of thinking they were on the same page, of believing that they were different from every other couple who fell apart. And now this? He took the next exit, pulling into an all-night gas station that sat on the edge of nowhere. The fluorescent lights hummed against the silence as he killed the engine, resting his forehead against the steering wheel. For a moment, he just breathed. A tap on the window startled him. Ethan jerked upright to find an old man standing outside, holding a squeegee. His uniform was faded, name tag scratched beyond recognition.
You okay, son?
The man asked, peering at him through the glass. Ethan forced a nod.
Yeah. Just tired.
The man studied him for a moment before nodding toward the convenience store.
Coffee inside's not bad. Won't fix everything, but it'll keep you awake.
Ethan offered a weak smile, more out of politeness than gratitude, and stepped out of the car. The store smelled of burnt coffee and cleaning solution, shelves lined with rows of snacks and cheap trinkets. He grabbed a cup and filled it to the brim, the steam curling into the air. As he reached the counter, he caught his reflection in the security mirror above, disheveled, eyes shadowed with something beyond fatigue. He barely recognized himself.
Rough night?
The cashier asked, scanning his drink. Ethan let out a dry laugh.
Something like that.
The cashier didn't push for details. He appreciated that. Back in the car, he let the coffee burn his tongue, welcoming the distraction. His phone vibrated again. Another message. This time, curiosity won out. Ethan, please don't shut me out. I know this is hard, but I love you. I just need you to understand. His grip tightened around the cup until the lid crumpled. She needed him to understand? He let the phone fall back onto the seat. He wasn't ready to talk. Not yet. Maybe not ever. The house was dark when Ethan pulled into the driveway, the only light coming from the dim glow of the porch lamp. His stomach twisted as he shut off the engine, staring at the front door. The home he had built with Lillian, the place that had once been his sanctuary, now felt like a battleground. He took a breath, trying to steady himself. The night's drive had done little to clear his mind. If anything, the silence had only given her words more room to echo in his head. I want an open marriage. As if 5 years of vows and love and building a life together could be rewritten with one selfish desire. He stepped inside, the air thick with unspoken tension. Lillian was waiting in the living room, curled up on the couch in her silk robe, a glass of wine in her hand. The TV was on, but muted, flickering images dancing across her face. She looked up as he entered, relief flashing across her features.
Ethan?
She set the glass down and stood, hesitating before taking a step toward him.
I was worried.
You were worried?
He let out a bitter laugh as he tossed his keys onto the table.
That's rich.
Her brow furrowed.
Come on, don't shut me out. We need to talk.
Ethan exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair.
Talk about what, Lillian? How you decided that our marriage wasn't enough for you? How you expect me to be okay with you sleeping with other men?
She flinched, but didn't back down.
It's not about replacing you, Ethan. It's about expanding what we have. I love you. That hasn't changed.
You keep saying that, but love doesn't sound like, hey, Ethan, I want to bring another man into our marriage.
Her lips pressed together, frustration flickering in her eyes.
I didn't say I wanted to replace you. I had desires, fantasies, and I want to explore them with you.
Something cold slithered down his spine.
With me?
She nodded, stepping closer.
I don't want to do this behind your back. I want you to be part of it, to experience it with me. It doesn't have to be a betrayal, Ethan. It could be exciting, a way for us to grow.
He took a step back, revulsion tightening his throat.
You're talking about bringing another guy into our bed like it's some fun little adventure?
I know it sounds crazy, but couples do this. It's not unheard of.
I don't give a damn what other couples do. I care about what we promised each other. About what we built. And you're willing to throw it all away for some experiment?
She crossed her arms, jaw tightening.
I'm not throwing anything away. I'm trying to be honest about what I need before it turns into resentment.
Resentment? Lillian, do you even hear yourself? You're standing there telling me you want another man in our marriage, and I'm supposed to what? Smile and nod? Maybe shake his hand before he takes you to bed?
That's not fair.
No, what's not fair is you springing this on me like it's some casual lifestyle change. If this is what you want, fine. But you're not going to do it while living in our house, pretending everything is fine.
What are you saying?
I'm saying if you want to be with other men, you need to leave. I won't stop you. But I also won't be a part of it.
A silence stretched between them, heavy and suffocating. Lillian's eyes glistened with something he couldn't quite place. Anger, sadness, maybe even regret. But she didn't argue. Instead, she looked away, nodding slowly.
I'll pack some things.
Ethan turned before he could see her disappear down the hallway, his chest tight, his hands shaking. He had drawn the line. And now, there was no turning back. Lillian slammed the trunk of her car shut, her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted the strap of her overnight bag on her shoulder. The night air was cool, laced with the scent of rain from an earlier storm. She turned back toward the house, their house, but the porch light had already been switched off. A silent dismissal. Ethan hadn't come outside to see her off. She didn't know why that stung so much. With a sharp breath, she climbed into the driver's seat, hands tightening around the wheel as she pulled away from the home she had shared with Ethan for the past 5 years. She told herself this wasn't the end, that this was just space, breathing room. But deep down, a gnawing uncertainty spread through her, cold and unrelenting. It took 20 minutes to reach Cassandra's apartment. The moment she stepped inside, Cassandra greeted her with a knowing smirk, draped across the couch like a queen surveying her domain. A glass of wine dangled from her fingers, nails painted a deep, glossy red.
Well, well, you actually did it,
She drawled, eyes flickering over Lillian's exhausted expression. Lillian let out a shaky breath and dropped her bag by the door.
I didn't exactly have a choice.
Oh, please. You had a choice, Lil, and you finally chose yourself. That's something to celebrate.
Lillian hesitated, glancing around the dimly lit apartment. The place smelled like vanilla candles and expensive perfume, a stark contrast to the familiar, comforting scent of home. She didn't feel like celebrating. She felt hollow. Cassandra sat up, patting the space beside her.
Come on, babe. Sit. Drink. Let's talk about your newfound freedom.
Lillian crossed the room slowly, sinking into the couch. The moment she did, Cassandra poured her a generous glass of wine, watching her with sharp, fox-like eyes.
So, have you told him yet?
Cassandra pressed, tilting her head. Lillian frowned.
Told him what?
Cassandra sighed dramatically.
That you're not going to be some lonely, exiled housewife pining after him. That you're moving on. That you have moved on.
Lillian's fingers tightened around the stem of her glass. She thought about Ethan, how he had looked at her last night, like she was a stranger, how his voice had cracked when he told her to leave. She had wanted him to fight for her, to beg her to stay. But he hadn't. Instead, he had let her go without a second thought. Her phone buzzed on the coffee table. She glanced at the screen. A message from Marco. How's my favorite troublemaker? Her pulse quickened. Lillian hesitated only a second before typing back. I could use a distraction. Marco's reply was immediate. Say no more. On my way. Cassandra laughed, raising her glass in a mock toast.
Now that is how you start a new chapter.
Lillian forced a smile, but as the minutes ticked by and the wine burned down her throat, she couldn't shake the image of Ethan, alone in their house, shutting off the porch light without a word. And for the first time, she wondered if she had made a mistake. Meanwhile, across the city, Ethan sat in the dark, staring at his untouched glass of whiskey. The silence was unbearable. He had thought he would feel relief. Instead, all he felt was loss. Ethan sat in his car outside a nondescript office building, gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. The rain drizzled down the windshield in lazy streaks, blurring the world beyond the glass. This wasn't where he had expected to be 5 years into his marriage. But here he was. A divorce attorney's office. He exhaled sharply, forcing himself to move. His footsteps echoed through the dimly lit corridor as he approached the door marked Daniel Whitmore, Family Law. Inside, the office was sterile and efficient, mahogany desk, leather chairs, bookshelves lined with legal volumes. The faint scent of coffee and old paper filled the air. Behind the desk sat a man in his late 40s, his suit crisp, his gaze sharp.
Ethan Parker?
The lawyer extended a hand, his grip firm.
Take a seat.
Ethan sank into the chair, his stomach twisting.
I never thought I'd need to be here.
Daniel offered a practiced, sympathetic nod.
No one ever does. But let's talk about why you're here now.
Ethan hesitated, running a hand through his hair.
My wife wants an open marriage.
The words still felt foreign, like they belonged to someone else's life.
And I don't.
Daniel studied him.
Has she already acted on it?
Ethan's jaw tightened.
She moved in with her friend Cassandra. I'm pretty sure she's seeing someone, but I don't have proof.
The lawyer leaned back, fingers steepled.
That proof might matter. In this state, infidelity can influence divorce settlements, especially if marital assets are involved.
Ethan exhaled.
So what do I do?
Daniel grabbed a legal pad, flipping to a fresh page.
First, we start documenting. Every message, every financial transaction, every sign of misconduct. If she's using joint money to fund this lifestyle, we need records.
Ethan's stomach churned. The idea of spying on his wife felt surreal. But hadn't she already betrayed him? The lawyer continued.
Second, we assess your assets. House, savings, retirement accounts. You need to be ready if she fights for more than her fair share.
Ethan frowned.
I don't want a war.
Daniel smiled wryly.
That's what everyone says. Until they're in one.
Ethan rubbed his temples.
I don't understand how we got here.
You'd be surprised how many men sit in that chair asking the same question? But here's the reality, you can either react, or you can prepare.
Ethan swallowed hard. He had spent the last week drowning in emotions. Anger, confusion, heartbreak. But now, sitting here, he realized something. It was time to stop reacting. It was time to start fighting for himself. He straightened.
What's the next step?
Daniel nodded approvingly.
We get to work.
Lillian stretched out on a sun-drenched balcony, the salty breeze from the ocean lifting strands of her hair. Below, the resort sprawled in a blur of white sand and crystal blue waves, the sounds of distant laughter and clinking glasses mixing with the rustle of palm trees. Cassandra handed her a mimosa, her sunglasses perched on the tip of her nose.
To new beginnings.
She said, raising her glass. Lillian hesitated, then clinked hers against it.
To new beginnings.
And yet, as she took a sip, she wasn't sure if she believed it. It had been 2 weeks since she left Ethan. 2 weeks of crowded bars, unfamiliar beds, and the constant, dizzying reassurance from Cassandra that she was finally living. She had let Marco sweep her up in whirlwind nights of passion, had indulged in reckless flirting, in stolen kisses under dim club lights. And now, here they were, in the Dominican Republic, her impulsive escape from the suffocating weight of her crumbling marriage. But why did she still feel like something was missing? Marco draped an arm around her, his lips brushing her bare shoulder.
You've been quiet today.
Lillian forced a smile.
Just taking it all in.
Cassandra rolled her eyes.
No thinking aloud on vacation. Especially not about him. Him.
Lillian had convinced herself that leaving was the right choice, that the life she was chasing was waiting just beyond the limits of their marriage. But lately, whenever she saw a couple walking hand in hand, or heard someone laugh with the kind of ease that only came from true comfort, an unsettling thought crept in. Had she given up too easily? She shook the thought away.
Relax, Lil.
Cassandra purred, stretching like a cat in the sun.
This is the dream, isn't it?
Lillian nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat.
Yeah, the dream.
Meanwhile, back home, Ethan sat at his desk, scrolling through his phone. A mutual friend had sent him a message. A link. Thought you might want to see this. His stomach twisted as he clicked it. The screen filled with a picture. Lillian in a bikini, drink in hand, Marco's arm possessively draped around her waist. Cassandra was there too, laughing, looking every bit the puppet master Ethan suspected she was. His grip tightened around the phone. She hadn't just moved on. She had run. Ethan exhaled slowly, setting the phone down. He had wanted to believe that this was just a phase, that maybe, eventually, she'd come to her senses. But seeing her like this, smiling, reckless, lost in the illusion of freedom, he knew the truth. The woman he had loved was gone, and he wasn't sure if she was ever coming back. The rhythmic hum of spinning wheels filled the crisp morning air as Ethan pedaled along the winding forest trail, the scent of damp earth and pine sharp in his lungs. The past few weeks had been a blur of paperwork, sleepless nights, and a quiet, gnawing emptiness that settled into his bones. But here, on the road, with nothing but the sound of tires against gravel and the steady burn of exertion, he felt something he hadn't in a long time. Relief.
Not bad for a first-timer.
A voice called from beside him. Ethan glanced sideways, his eyes landing on a woman with auburn hair pulled into a loose braid beneath her helmet. She rode effortlessly, her movements fluid, as if she were part of the wind itself.
You're assuming this is my first time?
He shot back, breathless but smirking. She grinned.
You ride like someone who used to love it, and then stopped.
Ethan faltered. She wasn't wrong.
I used to,
he admitted, shifting gears as they climbed a gentle incline.
before life got in the way.
Life has a habit of doing that. I'm Evelyn, by the way.
I'm Ethan.
They rode in comfortable silence for a while, weaving through the towering trees, the early sunlight casting golden streaks across the trail. There was something grounding about the simplicity of it, the push and pull of muscles, the fresh air, the steady cadence of movement. At the next rest stop, the group dismounted to catch their breath, filling water bottles and stretching sore limbs. Evelyn leaned against her bike, studying him.
So what brings you here, Ethan, who used to ride?
He exhaled, running a hand through his sweat-dampened hair. He could have lied, given her some vague, non-committal answer. But something about her made him want to tell the truth.
My wife left. Well, more like she wanted an open marriage. But I didn't.
Evelyn's expression didn't shift into pity or awkward discomfort like he had grown accustomed to. Instead, she nodded thoughtfully.
That's a hell of a thing. How are you holding up?
Ethan let out a breath that was half a laugh, half exhaustion.
Honestly, not sure.
But you're here. That's something.
He met her gaze, and for the first time in weeks, he felt a flicker of something unfamiliar. Not attraction, not yet, but warmth. A reminder that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't the end of everything. Maybe it was the beginning of something else.
Yeah, I guess it is.
As they rode on, the weight in his chest felt just a little bit lighter. Lillian sat at the bar, staring into the melting ice of her untouched cocktail. The club around her pulsed with energy, laughter, music, the low hum of conversation, but none of it reached her. Marco was across the room, leaning against the bar, his arm draped lazily around another woman's waist. He hadn't even noticed Lillian sitting there. Or maybe he had, and simply didn't care. It didn't matter. She had wanted this, hadn't she? Freedom, excitement, the thrill of the unknown. But all she felt was exhaustion. She pushed the glass away and grabbed her phone, her fingers hovering over Ethan's name in her contacts. It had been weeks since they last spoke, since she had walked out, convinced she was chasing something better. But was it better? Her job was hanging by a thread. Word of her escapades had spread, whispers circulating among coworkers. Parents at the school were murmuring about her lifestyle, some even requesting their children be transferred to another class. The principal had called her in for a conversation, but she knew what it really was, a warning. And then there was the loneliness. Marco had been thrilling at first, attentive, passionate, but she had quickly realized he was never really with her. He was with whoever happened to be in front of him at the moment. Cassandra had been no better, pushing her deeper into a world that felt increasingly hollow. She had traded stability for fleeting distractions. She had traded Ethan for nothing. The realization hit her like a punch to the gut. Without giving herself time to overthink, she slid off the bar stool and headed for the exit. The night air was cool against her flushed skin as she hailed a cab, her heart pounding with a mix of hope and dread. She needed to see him. She needed to fix this. Ethan stood at the kitchen counter, sipping his evening coffee when he heard the knock. He knew who it was before he even opened the door. Lillian stood there, arms wrapped around herself, her eyes wide and uncertain. She looked different.
Ethan, can we talk?
A month ago, he might have let her in without hesitation, but that was before. Now, he simply leaned against the doorway, arms crossed.
About what, Lillian?
She flinched at his tone, but pressed forward.
About us. About everything.
Ethan exhaled slowly, his gaze steady.
There is no us anymore.
Her face crumbled for the briefest moment, but she recovered quickly.
I made a mistake.
He let out a humorless laugh.
Yeah. You did.
She swallowed, looking past him into the house.
Can I come in?
No.
The word was final, immovable. Lillian blinked, as if she hadn't truly considered that he might refuse.
Ethan, please.
I'm not your safety net. You made your choice. You wanted freedom? Well, here it is.
The morning sunlight streamed through the kitchen window, casting a golden glow across the wooden countertops. The scent of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, mingling with the faint aroma of vanilla from the candle Evelyn had lit the night before. Ethan stood at the stove, flipping pancakes, a small but contented smile tugging at the corners of his lips. A year ago, he never would have imagined this. A year ago, he had been drowning. Now, he was breathing again. Something smells amazing, Evelyn murmured as she entered the kitchen, her hair still tousled from sleep. She wrapped her arms around him from behind, resting her cheek against his back. Flattery will get you extra syrup, Ethan teased, setting a plate in front of her. She laughed, settling into her chair. As she reached for her fork, his gaze drifted down to her stomach, still small, but already showing signs of the life growing inside her. Their child. Their future. Ethan sat across from her, taking in the simple beauty of the moment. The way the morning light caught in her hair, the soft hum of life around them. For the first time in a long time, he felt whole. Lillian sat alone in a cramped apartment, staring at the stack of unopened bills on the table. The once vibrant energy she had thrived on. The parties, the casual romances, the thrill of so-called freedom, had long faded. She had thought she could have it all. Now, she had nothing. Cassandra had moved on. Marco had lost interest, and the fantasies she had chased had crumbled into something hollow. Her job at the school had been quietly phased out after too many whispers, too many raised eyebrows from parents who didn't want their children taught by someone with her reputation. She had called Ethan once more, months ago. He never answered. She didn't blame him. With a shaky breath, she glanced at her phone, hesitating. Part of her wanted to reach out again, to tell him she was sorry. But she already knew he had moved on. And for the first time, she understood that she never would. Back at home, Ethan and Evelyn walked hand in hand through the park, the autumn leaves crunching beneath their feet. Ethan glanced at her, at the woman who had helped him heal, who had shown him that love wasn't about control or possession or reckless selfishness. It was about trust, about choice. And he chose this. He chose her. As they reached a quiet bench overlooking the lake, Evelyn squeezed his hand.
You okay?
As they reached a quiet bench overlooking the lake, Evelyn squeezed his hand.
Yeah, I finally am.
And as the wind rustled through the trees, as the sun warmed his skin, as the future stretched before him like an open road, he knew, without a doubt, that he had made the right decision. The past was behind him, and his new life had only just begun. The past no longer haunted Ethan. It had simply become a story he once lived. As he stood on his balcony, watching the city lights shimmer in the distance, he felt it. Peace. Lillian had made her choice, chasing a freedom that had cost her everything. And Ethan? He had chosen himself. Chosen love that didn't come with conditions, betrayal, or ultimatums. A soft laugh sounded behind him. Evelyn. His future. Ethan exhaled, a slow, satisfied breath. Some endings weren't tragedies. They were just the beginning,